In April 2024, I took a quick short break to Krakow, as I'd heard so much about it. Only stills at the moment, but the main square is one of the largest in Europe and is very beautiful. It was quite cold, so there weren't many market stalls out there, and I was quite tired. The next day, I went to Wawel Castle, which overlooks the whole town and is quite incredible when you get up there. That's the cathedral, which forms part of the complex, and there are lots of different things you can visit. And I only really had time to visit the state rooms. You go into the main courtyard where various other things like the armories and the royal rooms are situated. The murals on the walls are worth looking at themselves. So I went into the state rooms, and as you can imagine, lots of pictures of the era. But what I thought was quite interesting again was the murals around the top of the wall, which illustrated lots of scenes from Polish history. One particular room had heads of the local important people on the ceiling, and legend has it that they spoke to the king. But there we go. It's fairly bizarre. The other rooms were just full of grand pictures and impressive tapestries. And this is where they held most of their great state occasions. Again, you could spend a whole day just going around the different state rooms and learning about Polish history. Outside, there's a splendid view over the river Vistula. But at lunchtime, I went to a quirky little cafe which is decorated in traditional style and had traditional Polish food. And this time I had dumplings, which are very traditional. Fried dumplings are the most tasty. And on another day, I had rye soup with egg and sausage, which is very much a delicacy. The next day I went to the Museum of Illusions, which was unusual, but I hadn't been to one before. So lots of tricks of the eye. Sunday morning I went to the salt mines a few miles outside, and they still make salt, millions of pounds a year from it, from drying out brine that they have to pump up. We went down probably 300 metres, down lots of steps, and it is just incredible. You can't even begin to imagine how big these spaces are that we go through, and we only saw 1% of it. The salt mines have been worked since the 12th century, and all the carvings were made by the salt workers. They were regarded as quite privileged to be allowed to work there, though they worked very long hours, but they were paid probably 5 to 10 times as much as people on the surface. The horses lived their entire life, perhaps 10, 20 years, never coming out to the surface. Again, lots of tableaux explaining how the salt was gathered and the life of the miners. This is the famous King Casimir. value of salt was about half the value of gold. So people were paid their salary in salt, hence the word salary. We went down lots of caves and passageways, and this is the pièce de résistance, this amazing cathedral with incredible ornate carvings in the salt on the walls. There were lots and lots of huge spaces. There's even a basketball court. There are places for people to get married. There are cafes, restaurants, gift shops. It would take years to walk around all of it. And there's me, my only selfie in this whole video. This is a huge lake that is impossible to sink in because it's so salty. This particular cavity took about 100 years to excavate. As I say, almost 1,000 years of salt excavation here. Thankfully, we were taken back to the surface in a genuine miner's lift, all crammed in, only 8 people at a time, shooting up. But again, there were 7 levels below us. After that, I went to a really good museum in the centre of Krakow, and I learned a huge amount about the history of Poland. But the main event there was this picture by Leonardo da Vinci, probably as important as the Mona Lisa, but not mobbed and could get within inches of it. And this one by Rembrandt. So lots to see there. And then after that, I went back to the main square, which you can see here. There is, in fact, an enormous underground museum, which was excavated, probably more to see underneath this than there is on the surface. In the main centre of the square, there is this cloth hall, which has been there for hundreds of years and is now used to sell tat to tourists, every form of tat you can imagine. I didn't even buy a fridge magnet. And then this is the exterior, lots of cafes and bars. And that's St. Mary's Basilica, which has got an incredible interior, which unfortunately I haven't got a video of. Just incredible and so beautifully coloured, especially the altar at the end. In the evening, I went to a Chopin concert for an hour, and this is just a little bit. In the evening, the main square really comes alive, although it was quite cold and wet. And there are these beautiful horse-drawn carriages, which you can rent for about £50 to £70 for 20 minutes. The next day I went round the Jewish quarter, which is incredible, but also very harrowing, so I haven't included that.